Hello everybody and welcome to the video notes for Unit 7, Day 3. And today's video is dedicated to Andrew in 6C. Hi Andrew. Today we will practice calculating the life size dimensions of an example home. The life size dimensions. That means if you're of a home in real life, not so like just on paper, but in real life, how big would that actually be? Then you will begin calculating the life size dimensions of your home. So first we're working with an example, and then you're going to actually do it for your exhibition project for your home. To do all this work, we first have to calculate what the scale factor is. So we have to figure out what is the width of our model home. So for that, what I want you to do is, in your packets, I want you to go to the last page of your packets where it says example house, and I want you to tear that out, because you're going to want to use this a lot. So have this out separately. So here's our example house, and we want to figure out what is the width. So that's how wide this example home is. So we can take our ruler, and we're going to measure how wide it is. So we lined it up, the 0 over here, and right here. So it's going all the way from 0 to 13 centimeters. So the width of the home, I can label it here, there, and there. And actually it's a square. This home is a square. So all of these sides are going to be 13 centimeters. So that means I can go back into here. The width of the model home is 13 centimeters. The width of my life-size home is, and I'm gonna just give you a number, it's gonna be 20.5 meters. That's the life-size width of the actual home. So it's a lot bigger than just 13 centimeters. So 20.5 meters. That's over 60 feet. So if we have these two dimensions, I can find the scale factor by dividing the width of the life-size home by the width of the model home. So that means what I'm doing is I'm dividing the width of the life-size home, that's 20.5, divided by the width of the model home, which is 13. So I'm doing 20.5 divided by 13, and that equals, I can use my calculator for this, 20.5 divided by 13 is 1.576923. Now, it doesn't say this on your paper, but right here, notice that I want you to round all numbers that you're working with to the nearest tenth. The tenth is the first number after the decimal. So we're going to round it down so that it's to this nearest tenth right here. So I look at this number, I look at the number next to it, which is a 7. If the number after this number is 5 or greater, this number rounds up. So this is going to round up to 1.6. So my scale factor that I'm going to use to enlarge my home is 1.6. So I'm going to, where it says my scale factor is, I'm going to write 1.6. I'm going to box around that because we're going to come back to that number a lot. Okay. So now let's do an example room. Let's do the kitchen. And so here's my example home, and here's my kitchen. I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle that's similar to the rectangle for my kitchen. It doesn't have to be exact, so it looks like a kind of a tall rectangle, just like that. So I'll draw my rectangle here. And then I have to measure the dimensions of this kitchen in centimeters. So let's do that. So this kitchen, the width of the kitchen goes from there to right at 4. So 4 centimeters is the width of the kitchen. So I'll label my box over here as 4 centimeters this way. And then the length of the kitchen, I'll turn my paper over, line it up. So the 0's right there. And it's going to right about, it ends right there, right at 7.5. So 7.5 centimeters on this side. So now I know the dimensions of my kitchen. So it's 4 centimeters by 7.5 centimeters. And I can set up my equivalent ratios. So if this side is 4, so I can put 4 over this side, which is 7.5. This ratio is equivalent to, now I can multiply each number by my scale factor. And remember, my scale factor that we calculated was 1.6. So I'm going to multiply each of these numbers by the scale factor of 1.6. And that equals, I need to get my calculator again, 4 times 1.6, 6.4. And for the 7.5 on this side, do the same thing. 7.5 times 1.6 equals 12. So my equivalent ratio is 6.4 over 12. And we have to be careful with our units, because these are centimeters, and these are not centimeters, because if you look back here, the width of the life-size home was in meters. So our dimensions for our life-size home after we multiply by our scale factor are going to be in meters. Not centimeters, because that would be way too small. Meters. So then for the life-size dimensions, I'm going to draw this same rectangle right over here, but I'm going to draw it over here. Draw the same rectangle. And with these life-size dimensions instead. So this side up here is 6.4 meters, and on this side it's 12 meters. Now I know the life-size dimensions of an actual kitchen. Let's do one more together. The living room. So I'm going to go back to my example house, to my living room, and let's start measuring it out. So from this line to this line, I'm going to zoom in real close here so you can see. It starts at the 0 on this side, and then here it's coming to right about 4.5 is here. Each of these little lines is 1/10. So 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8. Right there. Each line is 1/10 of a decimal, or 1/10 of a centimeter. So 4.8 is right there. So I can say that the width of the living room is 4.8 centimeters. And then for the length, now I can measure it, but I actually know, you see how the length of this living room is the same as the length of this kitchen? So I already know if this is 7.5, then this is 7.5. Right, and you can double check if you want to. Yep, 7.5. Okay, so I'll draw my living room. Kind of like that, a little bit. And I label it with these dimensions, 7.5 centimeters and 4.8 centimeters. Okay, now I have this. I can set up my equivalent ratios. If this side is 4.8, so I can say the ratio of 4.8 to that side, which is 7.5, is equal to the ratio of each of these numbers times the scale factor of 1.6. So I can use my calculator. 4.8 times 1.6 is 7.68. Now remember, we want to round this to the nearest tenth. The tenth is the number right after the decimal, which is 6. So I look at the number after 6. If it's 5 or greater, I round the 6 up to 7. If it's less than 5, it stays at 6. So this is going to round up to 7.7. And then for the bottom, 7.5 times 1.6, 7.5 times 1.6 is equal to 12. I already knew that from up here, same thing. It's 12. And then don't forget our units. These are centimeters, and these are going to be meters. So that means if I redraw my living room here, the life-size dimensions of my living room are 7.7 meters on this side and 12 meters on this side. Okay. And with that, you should now be able to do the bedroom, and then you're going to turn the page, and then also do the bathroom, and then the study. When you are all done with the example, and when it's time to move on to your home, what you're going to do is on this page, this is page 4, where it says now do the same thing for your model home. This is page 4. When you first have to find the scale factor, right, you measure out what the width is of your home. And then when it says for the width of my life-size home, what I want you to do is look at the back of this paper, right, and find your name. Next to your name, you will see the width of your life-size home. So to figure out what goes here, you find your name on the very back. It's the opposite side of this. And find your name. Okay, if you have any questions about that, you can ask me. Otherwise, you can finish all the example home problems, and then you can move on to your home.
Thank you so much for playing my game.